Hi, my name is Jacqueline. I'm a certified occupational therapist assistant and an OT student. In this video, I'm going to share how I applied to OT school, what that process was like, and give you some tips and information if you are applying to OT school as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in seeing more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment down below. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them or direct you to resources that can get the question answered. So if you're applying to OT school, you're going to have to apply through the OTCAS system, which stands for the Occupational Therapist Centralized Application Service. It's kind of a mouthful. That's why they call it OTCAS. If you're applying to OTA school, it's the same. You have to apply through OTACAS. And so for that application service, they kind of coordinate and organize all of the materials required for your program's application. All programs require a little bit of different things for their application process. Mine required a personal essay, volunteer hours, observation hours if I wasn't already a COTA, which I was, so I didn't have to submit those. But if you're not, you have to submit those along with your transcripts and references as well. So for me, I applied through the OTCAS and I had to submit a personal essay, which I tried to tailor to the college that I was applying to. So I've pulled up their website and their mission and values and tried to incorporate that into my personal essay about my goals as an occupational therapist. I think that really, I feel like it helped me getting into OT school because they could see that I went the extra mile to see what their mission and values were, to see if mine kind of lined up with theirs, which they did, because the college I'm attending is a medical, it's a college that only does medical degrees. So obviously, since I'm in the medical field and that's what my degree is going to be in, our goals kind of lined up there. The cost for the application is $150 for your first application and then $65 for each additional application that you submit through the OTCAS. So if you're applying to like 5 programs, the first one's $150 and then the rest are $65 each. They also have a fee forgiveness or reduction program for if your income falls below a certain category, and that is on their website. I'll try to put a clip of that in here now. They also recommend that you apply to multiple programs. I didn't do this. I felt like, first of all, I loved the job that I had. I was working in the public school system and had been in that particular school for 3 years. And I didn't feel like a strong need to leave my job, but if I did get accepted into the program I was applying for, I was gonna, that was great. That's what I also wanted that. So I only applied to one school. I also think that it is not necessary to really apply to 5 or 6 or multiples at once when a lot of programs' application deadlines are staggered. So like my application deadline was March 1st. I know that there was another one in my state that was April 30th, I think. I mean, they're all over the place. So I knew before April 30th that I was accepted into this program. So I could have submitted my application to another program. Theoretically, I could have submitted my application to another program before their application deadline if I didn't make it into the one I did get into. So that's just something to keep in mind. All programs have different start dates and different timelines. Another thing, the deadlines though, one thing to note about that is the OTCAS does have a 6 to 8 week processing time, which I didn't realize when I submitted my application. And my program's application deadline for the college itself was March 1st, and I submitted my application on February 20th, so obviously that's not 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time. And when I submitted it, I got a confirmation and then a note saying that it would be 6 to 8 weeks before my college received my application. I immediately emailed my college and said, hey, I overlooked this, and I just wanted to know if I would still be considered, if there was any way that you all would be willing to still, take my application at the time that it gets processed by OTCAS. And they said yes, they would, and they were actually doing a grace period for the processing of OTCAS's applications. So mine, I think, actually only took like 14 days. So it was only 2 weeks. So I was only like 3 days. They received it only like 3 days after the application deadline, well within the grace period that they were providing. But I don't know that all colleges and universities will provide a grace period. So I would recommend, and OTCAS also recommends, that you submit that application 6 to 8 weeks prior to the deadline of your program to give plenty of time for it to be verified by their people. So those are the main things with OTCAS. And then, like I said, everybody's program is different, so they're going to require different things. But in the next section, I'm going to talk about what my program required and give you some tips on helpful things that I found as I was completing that process. So my program had, and most programs have, what's called an MSOT checklist. So this checklist tells you what things you're going to need to be able to be considered for the program, including prerequisites, GPA requirements, previous degree requirements, those types of things. So they required either you to have a bachelor's degree in a health-related field, or you had to have at least 90 college credit hours and be a COTA and have a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or higher. So I had all of those things. I don't have my bachelor's degree finished. I think I'm like 6 classes away from that, but I didn't have to have that because I'm also a COTA already. They also required that you have some of the classes you had to have I think an A or higher in them for my particular program. So it was just like certain classes like anatomy and physiology, they required you to have, I think it was a B. You had to have a B or better in the class. They wouldn't accept a C in any of those classes. Another thing was human anatomy, physiology, and statistics needed to be taken within 5 years of the program start date. And because I took human anatomy as a dual credit class when I was in high school, I actually had to retake that class for before the program because it just had been too long. I think it had been like 8 years since I took it. But it was kind of nice because I got a B in it the first time I took it and I got an A the second time. So it actually did bump my GPA up a little bit more, which was great. Another thing to note, a tip for you, is when I went through school as an OTA, I actually had some classes that counted for prerequisites for the OT program, even though they had a different name than what the prerequisite checklist actually says. So, for example, one of them was Introduction to Sociology or Anthropology. I had not taken that class, but one of the classes that I took for my OTA degree was a humanity that was equivalent to one of those classes. So I didn't have to take an additional sociology class. So just email your college and they will say yes or no if the class will count. Or they might give you a list of classes that could count and you may have one of the other classes there. So I think like foreign language classes also count maybe towards sociology or anthropology, just different things like that. So, and then they required statistics, and they say biology or physics or psych statistics. I had a business statistics class and they went ahead and accepted that one as well. So they'll make exceptions. It's not like concrete. Just make sure you email them ahead of time so they have that noted on your application. The other things that they required for the application, like I mentioned earlier, a personal essay, which I wrote, including like the mission and values of my program specifically. They required official transcripts to be sent, 3 professional references, and one of them has to be from an occupational therapist. I know a lot of occupational therapists, so they were actually, I think I had 3 occupational therapists, and then I went ahead and had 2 additional references on there as well, and they were physical therapists that I worked with. I didn't have to submit the clinical observation hours because I'm an OTA and had lots of observation hours, lots of hours just in the therapy setting. But volunteer hours were also required, and they only required 15 hours of volunteer work. I had many, many, many more hours than that because I work at a summer camp during the summer. I volunteer at the summer camp, and I also am a foster, like an animal foster parent, I guess. And I've had a foster dog for a while. And I also volunteered at a local like crisis pregnancy outreach center in my community. So I think the more volunteer hours you can put on your application, the better. And like it can be all kinds of different things. Like I didn't actually know. I actually asked them if I should put the animal fostering on there, and they said absolutely. That's something that positively impacts your application. So highly recommend volunteer hours. The more settings you can get, the better. And count them from years back. Put them all on there because it all makes you look like the type of person they want to be an occupational therapist, somebody who's willing to go the extra mile to help people and animals. My college, so once I submitted all of the required documents through the OTCAS and they were in the process of verifying it, And then just check whatever program you apply to is going to have different prerequisites, and they might have different things that you need to write. So I only had to write like the personal essay, and I think I had to write a mission statement as well. Then once you submit that, they will process it, send it to your college, and then they will review that application and decide if they want to interview you. So the other thing that we had to do after you submit your application through the OTCIS and they verify it and send it to your college will look at your application and decide if they want to interview you. For my college, because it's a program that has students that come from all over the country, they do Skype interviews. It wasn't Skype, it was a similar system, but it was basically like a Skype interview. And they interviewed 70 of the top applicants and accepted 28. So for the interview process, I decided that I didn't want to like prep like answers to questions beforehand, because I felt like if I did that, I would stress out so much about trying to remember what I had planned to say that I would just stumble through the interview and not answer the questions truthfully, not necessarily truthfully, but not like fully honestly, like being myself. Like I wanted to be myself for the interview. And so the interview, we scheduled it, and then it was on a Friday afternoon, and they said they had like a 15 or 25 minute window. I think my interview lasted about 20 minutes, so it was kind of in the middle. And in that interview, they asked pretty generic interview questions, things like what are your goals, what are your struggles, what's your weaknesses, strengths, those types of things. And I tried to answer them really honestly. I would explain, you know, they asked how I handled stress and heavy workloads. And so I was honest about it. I said, you know, like I do get stressed out and overwhelmed. I have a tendency to spend too much time studying and not enough on like my mental health and physical health. So then I would share that, but then I would also share what I know to do to address it and what I do to address it, what I do to overcome those struggles. So I don't think it hurts you to share your struggles in an interview. I think it hurts you not to share what you know and what you have done in the past to overcome those struggles. I honestly think that that's actually better than if you just talk like you're an amazing, wonderful person who can do everything, because nobody is that way. So that's not honest. That's not being honest. So my interview, I was really stressed out because I don't do interviews. I feel like I don't do interviews well. So after the interview was over, looking back on it, I couldn't remember exactly what all I said. But it obviously went okay for me because I did get accepted into the program. So the interview was on a Friday afternoon, and then at like 10 o'clock the next morning on a Saturday, I got an email saying it was an unofficial acceptance, and I would be receiving an official acceptance letter the following week. And I was really grateful because in the paperwork it had originally said it would take like 2 weeks before they would tell me for sure if I got in. And they went ahead and told me right away. So it kind of like took a lot of weight off my shoulders. I was like, oh, okay, well now I know, and I could tell my employer and so forth. So the interview process, like I said, I didn't prep for it. You just decide what's best for you. If you're good at prepping and remembering your answers to questions, do that. Do whatever works for you. But for me, I kind of like to wing it as I go in, and I feel like I do better that way because I'm not stressed about remembering what I had planned to say. So I think most programs require an interview. I don't know if they all require you to come. I mean, I don't know if many of them require you to come to the campus, since they are kind of spread out and people do travel for these programs. I felt like the Skype interview was pretty, I mean, I felt like it was worked out pretty well. There was an instructor from the program, and then I forget what the director of the program, I guess is what it would be called, who also is an instructor for one of our classes. So there's only 2 people there for the interview, and then it went to after that they had like forms they were filling out during that, and then that along with my application went to the review committee, who decided on what students to accept. So that was how the interview went. So in my next video, I'm going to be talking about what I've done since I got accepted into OT school, which has been a lot. As soon as I received that official acceptance letter, I also received a packet on things I needed to do to prep for the program. Just all kinds of like little odds and ends that I had to do, textbooks that I have to order, all of those types of things. So if you're interested in learning about how that process works, what it looks like, and some tips from me about how I figured out where to get cheap textbooks and those types of things, check out that video. It should be coming up in the next couple of weeks. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have any other questions, leave them down below and I will try to answer those or direct you to resources that can get them answered. So thanks for watching.